after lifting the Copa Libertadores, that is 3 out of the 5 trophies we need to complete the Pentagon challenge. With the 2 remaining, we need being the UEFA Champions League and the CONCACAF Champions League. But I have very much enjoyed my time at Santos, and considering where they were when we took over, we did really well to turn things around for them and win multiple league titles and plenty of other trophies even before lifting the big one that we came here to do. And I am sad to be leaving these players behind, but who knows, we may see some of them pop up later in our journey, and maybe even the system that we perfected too, as we resign from a role as Santos manager. And almost immediately there's a club in the job centre that is needing a manager that I am very much interested in. Because if we're going to the CONCACAF competition next, then I'm looking for a job in Mexico, and Club America is one of the ones that I was really hoping would pop up. Not to mention they have some of the finest kits in Mexico, and they have a player up front. This guy's insane. 25-year-old Mexican striker. He is phenomenal. Just lacks a little bit of pace, but that will do. That will do. So I think straight away I have to apply for this job. History-wise, they have won the trophy we are targeting twice in back-to-back years in the 2010s. And the CONCACAF trophy recently has been dominated by Mexican clubs since Orlando won it nearly 7 seasons before. After a week, I had 2 offers for an interview, including Liverpool, which I did not apply for. An interesting proposition for next time maybe, but not yet. Club America is where I want to go first. However, Matt Richardson of the ITV Sport can't believe I turned down the Liverpool job. Typical English press. Right now though, the offer I desired has come through, and Club America want me to be their new manager, and I am buzzing to get started in a league I know very little about. All I really do know is that the league is kind of split into 2 across a season, but they have 2 champions. I think that's right. But anyway, all I need to focus on, to be honest, is qualifying for the CONCACAF Champions League every single season. So I just know I need to be near the top. If I win the league, brilliant. If I win the league the second time, brilliant. If I win the league both times, fantastic. I just need to qualify. The transfer window was open, and I already started building my team, bringing in a new striker for just £2.5 million. We also desperately needed a new left back, and I signed a cheap one from Tigres. I'm also going to promote a youth academy prospect who's 18 but could really help us out in a lot of attacking midfielder positions, and we need Mexican players in the starting 11. And that centre attacking midfield role is a position that we are using, and we have slightly altered our system from Santos into a 2-striker formation. Because we also had the likes of Seiko Mara as a striker too sat on the bench who could be great for us. We also signed a Danish left back who will be a good starting attacking fullback from us from Midtjylland. And it's been a good start to the season, but not a great start. As in the first 5 games of the second half of the season, we win 3, losing 1, and sit in 3rd position. So let's crack on with the closing tournament, the second half of the Mexican League, and try to qualify for the CONCACAF Champions League. Well, after the 17 fixtures, we finished top of the league. However, it's not over yet. Because from this, the competition goes into a playoff system to win the league, and we enter into the quarterfinals, and as you can see, we are 2-0 up after the first leg. And we win the second leg 2-0 as well to go into the semi-finals against Monterrey. However, they pull off a huge win, and we go into the second leg of the semi-final 2 goals down after losing 4-2. Don't write us off yet, however, because after an early goal, we are on top of the match and equalise really soon after. And from then on, Monterrey could not handle us. And not only did we take the lead, we carried on scoring goals, and it ended up being incredibly embarrassing for Monterrey by the final whistle, as we stuffed them 5-0 coming from behind to win 7-4 on aggregate. And in the 2-legged final, we faced Cotera FC, and in the away leg, it's our captain Anderson Duarte who shone, as he scores 2 goals to give us a huge advantage, leaving us massively favourites to lift the closing tournament trophy of the Liga MX. But we started the second leg giving away a penalty within just 2 minutes. However, he stepped up and our keeper makes a huge save. From then on, it was always going to be our game to lose, and we were way too strong for our opponents, smashing them in the final, winning 6-1 on aggregate. And we lift the Liga MX closing tournament trophy and become champions of Mexico within 6 months of joining the club. And most importantly, we qualify for the CONCACAF Champions League next season, which by the way, was just won by Inter Miami in an All-American final. So we need to make sure that Mexico at least have a team that lift it next year. The board have given me £6 million with my main aim to try and get more Mexicans in my starting 11. This is because of the registration rules where you have to have 4 Mexican-born players in your starting 11. So I begin by signing the best Mexican keeper I could find within our budget from Cruz Azul that cost me just £2.8 million and is just 25 years old, as well as bringing in a Mexican defender from Pachuca for just £3.8 million. And they come into our lineup, making us a lot more defensively strong. So let's see how the opening stage of Liga MX gets on. Once again, it's top of the table after 17 fixtures as we go into the playoffs, with the quarterfinals lining us up to play Deportivo Guadalajara. And we battered them in the first leg 4-0 away from home. We lost the second leg 1-0, but we still progressed. And into the semi-finals, we played Pumas. And we once again proved that we were too strong even away from home, winning the game 3-1, battering them in the second leg 5-1 to go into the final. And yet another final, this time lined up against Tijuana. But again, we made this really easy for ourselves, as we won the first leg 4-1 to be crowned champions again. We had our youth intake in the winter break and brought through a generational talent up front. But with no budget, we just get on with the second half of the season. Although, it is time to get ourselves a tie to smarten up our look, and I actually think we match the Club America colours and go for a bright blue shirt and a yellow tie. It's the closing tournament time of the Liga MX. And would you look at that, we topped the group and this time it's unbeaten. However, we got all the way to the final again, only to lose on penalties to Atlas Guadalajara. But my mind was elsewhere because I'm a little bit confused on the CONCACAF Champions League. And that's because we don't seem to be in it this year. I feel like it runs once a year. And yeah, we weren't in it. And I don't know why. There was a first round knockout stage. We weren't in that. Even though we won the closing stage last season and obviously the opening stage this season. I don't know whether it goes a season after that, but I'm really confused on how I qualify or why I haven't qualified yet. But anyway, it's going ahead and Santos Laguna won it this year. Team I beat multiple times already this season. So I guess we gotta wait until next year to attempt to win the CONCACAF Champions League trophy. We next got to play in the Mexican Champions Trophy, where the winners of the two leagues play against each other. But on the day, Atlas Guadalajara had a fire striker and he scored a hat-trick in a 3-2 win on a day we were missing some key players. It was pretty much our entire starting 11 that plays international football. They were all absent. We keep plugging on through in the opening tournament once again, topping the group and getting all the way to the final, winning 5-4 in aggregate against Monterrey to be crowned champions. Two new signings joined us and both were defensive midfielders who could also contribute in defence, followed by a Mexican centre-back for £8 million. And on the eve of the closing tournament of the Liga MX, we finally have our first match announced in the CONCACAF Champions League against the current holders. And after the home leg finished 2-2, we head to the away leg. And with the game finishing 0-0 after 90 minutes, the match went to extra time and Santos Laguna scored right on half-time. Thankfully for us, we won a penalty though and converted to take the game to a penalty shootout. The first penalties for both teams were dispatched, but Santos Laguna's second penalty was actually smashed wide. Taking advantage of this, we continued to score to make it 3-2, and Santos threw the tie away by missing their fourth penalty, shooting wide yet again. And we went on to win the penalty shootout to progress to the quarterfinals. This put us against Guatemalan side Comunicaciones, and the first match was in Guatemala, defeating them pretty comfortably 6-1. And after the second leg, we go through to the semi-finals with an 11-2 aggregate win. The semi-finals, however, would see us clash with Club Necaxa, also from Mexico. We played the first leg of the semi-final at home, and our striker Ruiz put in an incredible performance, scoring the first goal. On the 20th minute, the scoreline was 2-0 when Carlos Aguilar doubled our lead. And with some beautiful football, Ruiz found his strike partner's run and Gallo smashed in to make it 3-0 before half-time. And we take that 3-0 lead into the second leg. The second leg began with our left back breaking the lines of defence to assist Gallo to make it 4, and Ruiz made it 5 from the spot, and Necaxa could only muster a consolation goal, sending us into the final of the CONCACAF Champions League. And there to face us is our Mexican opponents, Atlas Guadalajara again. And we wouldn't have to wait long either, as it was the next match that we had to play just days later. Once again, we took the lead from a penalty, but Atlas equalised in the second half, again from the spot. But Rafael Luiz dropped into space and played a beautiful pass to Rios this time round, and the outcome remained the same. goal. And we take the slight advantage of a goal into the second leg. And that second leg was a prime example of what a good footballing side we were, as Rios scored in the 9th minute. But look at this, just how amazing of a team goal our second was, as Ruiz put us 4-1 up on aggregate. And he was exceptional once again, scoring his second just before half-time and getting his hat-trick and the match ball in the final in the second half. Atlas managed to pull 2 goals back, but it didn't matter, because by then it was already curtains and our names was being scribed on the CONCACAF trophy. And at the first time of asking, we won the CONCACAF Champions League to claim our 4th out of 5 in the Pentagon Challenge. 4 down, and it's the big one to go in Europe. However, right now there is no jobs around, so I'll continue here at Club America to finish this part of the season off, seeing as we are so close, or unless another big job appears. And after we defeated Tigres in the final match 3-0, we go into the playoffs in top spot once again. Hilariously though, we played against Atlas Guadalajara again and defeated them in the quarters to go on to play Monterrey in the semi-finals, and we progressed through to the final where we are met by Santos Laguna, and for the final time we are champions of Mexico. And yes, as I said, for the final time, because it is now time for us to resign from our role at Club America, a club that I've actually really enjoyed managing. Rafael Ruiz, what a player. Wherever I go, I will be looking to see if I can get him if nobody else comes in for him first. He's been wanting to leave for ages. There's clubs that have been after him ever since I joined, but that is definitely somebody that I might try and pick up, as well as Edson Rios as well, who's been incredible. But yes, it is time to go. It is time to resign. And right now, there has been a job that has popped up, Atletico Madrid. I'm not interested in that. It's not a club that I decided to manage. They finished 7th in La Liga, with Barcelona and Real Madrid finishing the top 2. Of course, that's the 2 that I would want to be managing. But Pochettino is at Real Madrid. I don't know how long he's been there. Just over a year. So probably not really looking to move him on right now. And Luis Enrique is back at Barcelona. And he has been there for pretty much since the start that we've been doing the Pentagon Challenge. He's been there for nearly 13 years. So I very much doubt I'll be heading to Spain. But there are other leagues that we've got loaded, include the Premier League. There's some big clubs there that potentially might need a manager over the summer. But after my experience, I should be able to get a job anywhere with my 4.5-star reputation. Not to mention how much my attributes have progressed, although I'm a little salty at the adaptability still being only on 5. So now we sit and wait for the right role to pop up in Europe. And we were waiting a while until the Newcastle United job came up in late November with the sacking of Eric Dyer, who, by the way, is an incredible manager attribute-wise, and even managed Borussia Dortmund before he went to Newcastle. But this is a Newcastle team that is still in the Champions League and doing very well in the league phase of the competition. But I don't know whether the negatives outweigh the positives. One of the other big positives is they have one of the best strikers in the game right now, and he's also top scorer of the Premier League. He's 28, so it's not like he's going around anywhere anytime soon. The Japanese striker Endo. A negative is they're currently in 13th place. I know they're only 11 games in, but it would mean obviously we've got to catch up to the top 4 if we want Champions League football next season. And that wouldn't be too bad if we could be like, it don't matter if we get it this season, we'll just get it next season. Because unfortunately the balance and the finances, they're not looking great for Newcastle. A minus £128 million. The transfer budget was only 70 million this season, which isn't amazing for European football, and it only has a 65% of transfer revenue which is made, so any players we sell, we only get just over half for it, and that's always a worrying sign. The minimum budget guaranteed for next season is 28 million, and the rich benefactor is now an underwriter, and that's because he actually scaled down his funding 3 seasons before this, which they tend to do at Newcastle, I've noticed. So I don't know whether this is a good idea or not. They've got some cracking players, Endo being one of the main ones. They still got Diamonde playing up front. They've got Loran, who we almost went to his club while he was there. Jordan Ross is another really good striker who's 28 and a fantastic striker. So we've got 2 really good strikers. I think it is a good move. There's always going to be some kind of negatives, and we're not walking into Manchester City anytime soon. None of the other clubs that have good sides are doing badly. Liverpool are doing badly, but they've dropped off massively. I think we might go for this. I think I'm going to apply for Newcastle. Yeah, I'm going to apply. 2 more jobs popped up immediately after, but nothing that I thought was worth going for. And the Newcastle fans consider me as the favourite for the role. I guess we really got to make sure that we nail this interview. Meanwhile, Eric Dyer jumped straight back into management, getting the vacant Valencia role. But we will be taking over his former club, Newcastle United, as they offer us the role to become their new manager. So the hunt for the final trophy begins. And I think the biggest problem with our side is the age. A lot of our first team players are already in their 30s. Tactically, we've adapted our system to suit our new side with an attacking midfielder role, ball-playing defenders, and a sweeper keeper. Not to mention, we've gone for a deep line playmaker instead of a halfback in that centre midfield spot. I am also already feeling the cold, so I need to change my attire as well. I'm going to need to go back to a classic white shirt and black tie to suit the club that we're at, and it's in the northeast of England. We need an overcoat to keep us warm on the touchline. I did also want to put a watch on, but it won't let me with the overcoat, so I'll just stick to put some bling on my fingers instead. Our first game in England didn't go well, considering we scored after a minute because this world-class winger at Everton bagged a hat-trick against us. Our next match is against Chelsea, who are the current champions, top of the league, and has some of the world's best players. They also won the Champions League last season too. And after giving away an early goal, we did eventually manage to salvage an equaliser and grab a draw. Skipping forward to the end of January, we finished 9th in the league phase and have been drawn against Dinamo Zagreb in the playoff round. We've been plodding along in the league table as well and sit just outside the Champions League spots. And we defeated Dinamo Zagreb in the first leg 4-1, and we replicated that same result in the home leg to go through to the round of 16. Going on to face a familiar enemy in Manchester United as we smashed him in the first leg, picking up another 4-1 result. Their striker, who scored by the way, is easily the best striker in the game that I have seen. He is fantastic. But we still knocked them out though, despite them winning the second leg 3-1 and its quarterfinals against Benfica. And for the 4th time, we've got our favourite scoreline in the first leg. 4-1 win. Yet somehow Benfica came back swinging in the away leg and pulled off a shock comeback, eliminating us out of the competition, beating us 6-1, meaning it's not going to be that quick to complete the Pentagon challenge this season. So let's finish this season in the Premier League and hopefully qualify for the Champions League next year. And that's just what we managed to do. We finished in 5th place, which is the last Champions League spot now that the Champions League is split into a bigger thing. Chelsea, though, unbeaten season. They drew 10 games, but an unbeaten season by Chelsea. Mental. They are going to be so difficult to overcome. They got look at that. How good is that? I mean, he wasn't the top scorer of the league. That man is Endo, which is our player. He is wanted, however. But he's 29. He's still got a few years left yet. He can't jump, don't get me wrong. But he's a fantastic finisher of the ball. And he's our man. He's our man, and that's the main thing. Ed Malum is another striker that I know that they've got. He's unhappy. I mean, failing to challenge for the champion. You just won you won it last season, right? But we need to focus on next season now. The Premier League was just getting us qualified for the Champions League. The next step of course, our Pentagon challenge. We've been given £72 million. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. I might have to do a little bit of cheeky business if I want to find a better squad going into next season, because job-wise as well, there's not a lot of options there. I could look at going to Juventus or Roma, but neither of the teams are anywhere near as good as the side that we've got right now. And I don't think I'd be silly to leave unless the Chelsea job or a Man City job came up. I think England is probably the best place to stay in terms of European football. I start the season by selling Laurent to Saudi Arabia for £43.5 million, as I'm actually thinking of a change of system. In fact, I sold quite a few squad players that could go for some kind of value in hopes of building my budget up to improve my defence. Because we unfortunately lost Diamonde, who's 34 now, to Barcelona on a free transfer. However, we are also utilising the free transfers ourselves, bringing in a fantastic defensive midfielder who's been playing in Saudi Arabia. But we did also spend the money that we had. We brought in a new keeper. In fact, we've brought in 2. The first one here, Ayinde, Nigerian from West Ham, cost us £44 million. Diego Maurizio also comes in as a starting centre-back now from Arsenal, £33 million there. We've had to go for these signings. We couldn't really go for the big boys because we needed so many players. Regas is actually a player that was here last season. He was on loan with a view to a permanent deal. Tales was the free transfer. John Velandia, though, from Barcelona, £40 million for the other centre-back. So now we've got two good centre-backs coming in. We've lost two centre-backs in the transfer window. Mario Flores is the other goalkeeper. He's a young Mexican goalkeeper that we got for 11 million, so it was worth picking him up because he was so cheap. Then we got two youngsters coming in from homegrown clubs as well. Kelvin Tawi, who plays on the left-hand side. You'll realise why I'm doing that, but he looks like a good prospect for 19 years old. We'll get some game time this year. And Samuel Felix, who is a striker that I've kept my tabs on. He's actually Mexican, but he's been playing at Burnley for a while now. I remember when he was at Santos Laguna when I was in Mexico, and I had my eye on him then. But he's fantastic. His attributes early on are great. I think he'll be our third choice striker. We also had Andy Sloan returning from a loan deal, and he is fantastic and has a great potential. So I think we need to give him some game time. We need to find a role for him. And just so happens he plays naturally on that left wing. And I've got an idea that I want to try. Now, I have been using a variation of the Santos tactic, but I want to kind of move away from that. And I feel like our team is perfectly set up for a 4-4-2 formation. We've got two good defensive midfielders, but I think I'm going to keep them in the midfield right now. We'll just keep it quite simple here. Wingers on attack. I think, to be honest, it's going to be a very basic setup, but I just want to make us really hard to beat. So I feel like putting us with pressing forwards up front is going to make us incredibly difficult to beat, and I think I'm just going to go for a really simple partnership in that midfield of a box-to-box and a ball-winning midfielder both on support. I don't want it to be too complicated. I think it's just going to be as easy as that. Have like wing-backs who are going to bomb forward as well. And will just keep us really solid to beat and try and focus more on that. I think going more attacking and maybe lowering the tempo slightly down, but going a little bit more direct with my 4-4-2, that's going to be the way to go this season. And the tactics seemed like a breath of fresh air, as this finally feels like my team instead of the one I inherited. So let's progress through to the end of the Champions League phase and see if we qualify. Well, it was a really solid campaign and we won all but one game, including a 2-0 win against PSG and a big win against Man City to sit us in second place, only behind Barcelona. We also did a bit of business in January window as well, selling a striker and signing a right midfielder for a very cheap cost. We are in a title race too, with 5 points behind Manchester City, who are in first, but we have a game in hand. And we picked up our first trophy though, as we won the League Cup. But now we shift our focus to the knockouts of the Champions League. And in the round of 16, we played Atalanta in the first leg, which took place in Bergamo, Italy. And they beat us comfortably too, with a 2-0 win. And we even missed a penalty in the game. So the second leg, we really needed a big performance, and especially from our strikers who went goalless in the last leg. And in the second leg, both Ross and Endo picked up a brace and helped us through with a tight 5-4 win on aggregate, giving us Porto in the quarterfinals. And the Portuguese side couldn't handle our high-pressing 4-4-2, and we comfortably won the first leg 3-0 in Porto. And the second leg was even worse for Porto. We smashed them 10-1 on aggregate, with us being the only remaining English side in the semi-final that included both the Milan teams. But could Inter Milan stop us, or would they roll over like Porto did? Well, the first leg, we were 3-0 up by half-time and take a 3-goal advantage to Italy, where we drew despite taking the lead twice, but either way, we are in the Champions League final. One game away from completing the Pentagon challenge. However, before that, in a less important competition, we still had the chance of winning the Premier League, and we've got 2 games to go. And with a very late winning goal at Molineux, we just need Chelsea to lose and for us to win, and we will win the league on goal difference. And we certainly did our job against Brentford, as we smashed them at home on the final day 6-0 to put the pressure on. And somehow, Chelsea completely bottled it and lost to Arsenal 2-0, meaning we are the Premier League champions on goal difference. But it's time for the Champions League final against Bayern Munich, who have a stacked team and a fantastic strike force. And we are just 90 minutes away from completing the Pentagon challenge as we walk out for the UEFA Champions League final. And after a season full of fantastic, high-pressing football and huge amounts of goals being scored by our Toon Army, today seemed to be one game too many for our Newcastle side, and unfortunately, we will not be completing the Pentagon Challenge just yet, as we were battered in the final 3-0. And that 5th trophy eludes us for now. The board have given us a decent budget this season, and recruitment is so important this summer, and I'm actually considering selling our star player Endo, who is wanted right now. I know you're thinking I've probably lost my marbles or something, because he has been like the best scorer. I mean, even last season with 26 goals. He has dropped off, although he did pick up 10 more assists compared to the 10 goals he lost out on, and actually had a very similar season in terms of average rating. But he is 30 now. He's only got 2 years left in his deal. He's worth a lot of money, and I could potentially bring in 2 players with that, but definitely replace him with a better suited player for my tactic, because I want to use pressing forwards up front. Whenever we were using pressing forwards, that was working really well. But with only 10 aggression, his pressing forward on attack gives him a 3.5. He's only 3.5 star suitability for that, whereas a 5-star, almost, he was a 5-star as an advanced forward role. And the pressing forward just works better in the system that I'm trying to implement here. So I actually think selling Endo might be the way to go this season. But before a bid comes in, I'm more focused on our defence, and I have a perfect signing confirmed for centre-back, with Lewis Parsons coming in from Brighton, who is left-footed centre-back that we needed. But the bid finally came, and we said goodbye to Endo for £88 million. The player to replace him isn't quite as good, but it has the attributes I feel to suit our system better, and he's from RB Leipzig for £96 million. We won the Charity Shield on penalties, but our first 4 games are tough. We then sold one last player to Bayern Munich and brought in a couple of young defenders with that money who can cover all 3 positions. So with our team lined up in its best 11 this season, Ziccini actually starts on that left back role. So again, with our main aim of the Champions League, let's see how we get on in the league phase. Outside of a wild loss to Manchester United, we win another 7 games and qualify second behind Porto of all sides. In the round of 16, we played Crystal Palace and we defeated them in the first leg at Selhurst Park 2-1. And the second leg at home was a simple victory as we eased Crystal Palace out of the competition with a 2-0 win. The quarterfinal draw once again puts us up against Porto, which went well for us last year. And once the first goal went in from Andy Sloan, it was ours to lose. Which, to be fair, we nearly gave away, allowing Porto to equalise, but Samuel Felix banged in a hat-trick and gave us a 4-1 first leg win. And a 1-0 loss in the second leg sees us through to the semi-finals of the Champions League once again. And it's against another Milan side. The first leg at home only finished 1-0, however. And is that enough to see us through to the final? Well, in the second leg, it was a 1-goal-a-game match again, and once again, it was scored by a Newcastle player. And that 2-0 aggregate win sends us into the Champions League final, this time against Barcelona. And we don't have to focus on the Premier League, as Manchester United have secured the title with games to play. Although, we do have an FA Cup final to play just before the Champions League. So it's a cup final before our really important cup final. And let's hope the Champions League goes a lot better for us than the FA Cup, because there's a good chance I'll be sacked if we don't win it after that 4-0 defeat. Anyway, it's time for the Champions League final, and we are without 2 of our 3 strikers who bagged a total of 56 goals between them this season. A big loss as we attempt to complete the Pentagon Challenge by winning the Champions League final. And against an unrecognisable Barcelona side all these years later, except for one man, that being Lamine Yamal, who is still around. But this is a fantastic opponent, and we will have to be at the top of our game to lift the trophy to avoid back-to-back final defeats. And the scores actually stayed 0-0 into the second half when Araujo hopped on a loose ball and smashed it past the keeper. But what felt like seconds later, Barcelona with a route 1 ball over the top of our defence went through and equalised. The game went to extra time, and when neither side was able to break each other down, it was penalties. And our wildest nightmares come true as we missed our first 2 penalty kicks, with Barcelona scoring their first and a chance to put them 2-0 up in the shootout through Lamine Yamal. But Mario Flores Flores makes a huge save. We finally score our first penalty, and it's Mario Flores once again with a massive save to bring the scores level in the shootout. Another Newcastle penalty goes in, and it's a Barcelona player who steps up, and his penalty smashes off the crossbar and out. Meaning if we score this penalty, we win the shootout, and centre-back Lewis Parsons steps up and smashes it home, and Newcastle United are champions of Europe. But most importantly, we have now won all 5 Champions Leagues in our mission around the world to have completed the Pentagon Challenge, which surely makes me now the greatest manager of all time. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to not miss the next challenge that we take on.